Hey you guys, welcome to another sew along. Yes, I am back with another sew along. This time is for Butterick 7012. It is the pants. This is the complete sew along in this video. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's go ahead and first start with the instructions. It's not much of an intro here because we kind of already did a lot of this in doing the jacket, which you guys will see full photos here coming up with the pattern review. So for the pants, we'll walk over, I'll tell you the pattern pieces you're gonna need, but what I wanna tell you is it's 17 steps in this one. I think it's 8 or 9 pattern pieces. Let me check. So you need pattern piece number 20 to 28, so 9 pattern pieces there. One thing I want to also mention is take note of the interfacing layout. So pattern piece number 21, 26, and 27, you need to have the right side of the interfacing facing up, and then the wrong side of those pattern pieces facing up, okay? So basically what that means, let me grab a piece of interfacing. So you have the bumpy side, which is the glue side, not that side. You want the right side, that's gonna show. You want that up, facing you, the right side up. And then you're gonna take the pattern piece. I'm just gonna use one of the pattern pieces. So let's just use pattern piece number 21 as an example. And you're just gonna put it down like this, okay? Wrong side up. And then you're gonna cut around. You're gonna do that to pattern piece number 21, 26, and 27, okay? And that way when it comes time to sewing, you have your interfacing on the right side and you don't have to cut another set of pieces out, okay? So just make sure you do that as it states in the instructions. All right, and then pattern piece number 28 is cut on the fold, all right? So let's get a little bit into I'm just gonna kind of walk you through what I'm gonna be doing. This one is not going to be a back and forth to the sewing machine because this is very similar to my pants that I made, Simplicity 9926. That was the pink pair of pants. Now I'm making a pair of black pants, but with a different pattern, but the instructions are very similar, okay? So first, I'm gonna do the front and the back. So in the front, you have pleats. In the back, you have darts. Now, I have done pleats and darts on this channel so many times, so I'm just gonna kind of show what I'm gonna be doing, but not necessarily walking you through it. From there, we will put in the fly front zipper. Now, I will kind of walk you through that, but I have many videos that shares how to do a fly front zipper. From there, I'm gonna go ahead and do the inseams. From the inseams, I'm gonna do the pockets and the side seams, put on my carriers, finish off, do my waistband facing and the waistband, close it out. And then after I do that, I'm gonna finish up my carriers, add my buttons, buttonholes, and my hook and eye closure. And then from there, I'll be done and hem it. So it's just 17 simple steps. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the pattern pieces you will need in order to construct these pants. All right, so let's go over the pattern pieces you will need in order to construct these pants. Now, once again, for reference, if you missed the jacket, I'll put it up here so you're able to see that. You can always go to those videos and see how I constructed view A, which is the jacket. Now, I know I did not finish it off with the lining and all that good stuff. We put together the lining main pieces. All you had to do is go ahead and do the sleeve lining and stitch it. So I felt like you guys could do that. So that's why I did not completely finish it in the video, simply because I let mine hang for a few days and I feel like that you guys could finish that. All right. So if you need some assistance, just hit me up and let me know. But yeah, that's that. Okay. So what we're going to be doing is the pants. So let's go ahead and talk about the pattern pieces you will need. First one is pattern piece number 20, your front. You need to cut 2 of fabric. Next one is pattern piece number 23, which is the back. You need to cut 2 of fabric. Make sure you mark all of your dots, your notches, and your darts, okay? So make sure you mark all of those out as well. Next pattern piece is pattern piece number 24, the pockets. You need to cut 4. Pattern piece number 25, which is the carrier. You need to cut 1. This is optional. If you do not want carriers, you do not have to cut this. But I like to wear belts with my pants, so therefore I like to have the option of having carriers or belt loops is what you could call them. All right, so that's pattern piece number 25. Pattern piece number 21, the right fly. You need to cut 1 of fabric and interface 1. Pattern piece number 22, the left fly. You need to cut 1 of fabric. Do not interface this one, okay? Pattern piece number 26, the right front waistband. You need to cut 2 of fabric and interface 1. And yes, I have my interfacing already done this time around, okay? 27, the left front waistband. You need to cut 2 of fabric and also interface 1. Make sure you transfer your dots and your marking for your buttonhole. And then the last pattern piece is pattern piece number 28, the back waistband. You need to cut 2 unfold of fabric and interface 1, okay? So those are all the pieces that you need in order to construct these pants. So without further ado, let's go ahead and construct these pants. View C of Butterick 7012. Let's go ahead and do it now. All right, first things first, grab pattern piece number 20, which is your front, and we're gonna go ahead and make our pleats. So if you notice that I have my pleats marked out right here, I'm gonna grab the pattern piece so you could see. So if you look at the pattern piece, it shows pleats. Now, when you fold your pleats, you need to have your pleats going to the side seam. I'm sorry, the side seam instead of the front, okay? So just because my side seam is going that way, so this is the front, this is the curve. You don't want your pleats going towards the crotch curve. You want it going towards the side seam. So that's why you see where it says pleat. I'll zoom it in so you can see it. But it says pleat, and I have the arrow going this way because I like to, you know, because I work with so many pattern pieces, I always like to mark out which direction it's going to go. All right. And then you're just going to take this line and this dot and meet with the other one. So just move it over. And then I'm going to first pin where that dot is, which is right here. And that just tells me that I'm going to stop sewing right there when I sew down. All right. And then I'm going to pin at the top across, okay? Just like that. So now what I'm going to do is go to the sewing machine, and using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, I'm just gonna base to keep this in place. After I base, using a regular length stitch, I'm just going, and about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, I'm going to stitch from the top all the way down to that dot, back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I went ahead, now this is step number, I think 2, and this is putting your pleats, and I went ahead and press it. Now what they want you to do next is go ahead and do your fly front zipper, but I'm just gonna hold off real quick. I wanna grab my back and do my darts, all right? So grab pattern piece number 23, which is the back. So we are on step number 3. We will go back to step number 2 to do the fly front zipper. So pattern piece number 23, which is your dart, I have already done one. This is what it looks like. I'm gonna move that off to the side. I'm gonna grab the other one, which is pattern piece number 23. And what I'm going to do, we have made darts so many times on this channel. And I know someone said that I make darts look easy, but it's literally, all I do is take it from the center and pinch it out. And then I start at the bottom where that triangle start meeting. I take it and I literally just pin, look on one side, see if they match up. And I just pretty much do that all the way up, making sure that I pin, put a pin on the white line, look the other way. It's not meeting up. So I just kind of like play with the fabric, maneuver it, and make sure that my top and bottom fabric meets up all the way up. All right. One more pin, look the other way, same thing. All right. After I have my pins in, now you don't use any seam allowance. I just start at the beginning. I'm going to back stitch at the beginning, sew on the line that you created for your darts. So on that line, and then when you get to that dot, do not backstitch. Just pull enough thread and tie it 2 to 3 times. All right, let's go ahead and do that, and then press your seam allowance towards the front or the center front crotch seam. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the darts done, we're gonna go ahead and start working on our fly front zipper. All right, so go ahead and move pattern piece number 23 off to the side. Go ahead and grab both pieces of pattern piece number 20, which is the front. Now I have a whole complete sew along on how to do a fly front zipper. So I'm not like gonna necessarily walk you through. However, I'm just gonna show you how I do it and kind of speed it up. All right, because like I said, I have a complete video, but the first thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and search my seams, my crotch seams, and then go ahead and get to doing it. And I'll put words up on the screen. All right, so let's go ahead and do it now. All right, so I decided that I guess I'm gonna walk you guys through this step because I know you guys will pretty much ask me how to do a fly front zipper for these pants if you are interested in doing these pants. But the first thing that I have already done is went ahead and searched my crotch seams. Now what I'm going to do is taking pattern piece number 21, which is your right front, okay? Now what you're gonna do here is you have 3 notches. You can't see it on mine, but it's gonna go to this side. So what you're gonna do is with right sides together. Now, instead of on this side, my seams is on this side instead. So what I'm gonna do is put it on this side because that's how the zipper is going to be. Instead of, so it says right fly. I wanna be clear that this is the right side of your pants. This is the left side, all right? So you're gonna pin it to the right side just like this, making sure that this dot meets with that dot, okay? So go ahead and pin your right fly to your pants now and match up the top and that dot. All right, so go ahead and pin there now. All right, so now that I have it pinned using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and a regular length stitch, back stitch at the beginning and sew all the way to that dot and back stitch at that dot. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have my right fly on, just like this, what I'm gonna do is go ahead and, I mean, you can go ahead and trim it down if you choose to, that's completely up to you. But what I'm gonna do is go ahead and understitch at about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and then I'm gonna start working on my zipper. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have my left fly serge at the bottom and at the side, go ahead and just hold on to this, move it off to the side real quick. We'll use that in just a moment. But what I want you to do is go ahead and pin your zipper onto, well, we're gonna go ahead and create this line. So I'm just gonna pin all the way up. So let me just go ahead and pin all the way up now. All right, so now that I have it pinned, I'm gonna go ahead, following my white line that I created, I'm gonna stitch on the white line all the way down. Make sure I am turning and maneuvering all the way around that, and then stop right at the beginning. All right, so let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have went ahead and did that curve area, go ahead and take your left fly. You're gonna put it underneath, and basically you're gonna line this zipper tape up with the raw edge, all right? So let's just go ahead and put that under just like this and line it up. Make sure that that dot meets up on your left fly. It meets up with the dot that you have on your garment, okay? And then you're just going to pin it all the way up. So let's go ahead and pin all the way up now. You're just pinning the zipper onto your left fly. All right, so now that I have the zipper on my left fly, you're only going to be sewing on the zipper area. You're going to be using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning, and at the end, stop at that dot. All right, so let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I went ahead and put the right fly on, left fly, right fly, whatever. I don't know which one it is. It is the right fly. Right fly. So now what I'm going to do, I am going to go ahead and grab the other part of my pants, right fly. I think that was the right fly. Grab the other portion of my pants, okay? So you have a line. Now you have two ways of doing this. What you can do is go ahead and fold on that line right here, which happens to be 3/8 of an inch. You could fold it like this and then put that press edge on top of the zipper. Now, first of all, what you need to do is mark your zipper. So let me grab a white chalk. All right, and what you're gonna do is mark the top portion of your pants. So do that first, just like that, all right? And what happens is when you turn your zipper down, because you're gonna need this zipper area, okay? So you have two things that you can do. Like I mentioned, you could fold it in half, you could fold it back just like that and put it right here to where the top is lined up, the very top is lined up with this little edge right here. You could do that way, but I don't like doing it that way because then you have to make sure that it's flat and everything. So what I like to do is I like to do right sides together. I open out my zipper, right sides together. I'm gonna line up the top portion right here and go all the way down to that dot, all right? And I'm just going to pin. All right, so now that I have it pinned, I am going to use 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm gonna start at the top, back to stitch at the beginning, and so all the way down to the dot and back stitch at the dot. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so I finished sewing on this side right here. As you can see, it looks really good. It is nice and clean. This is what my zipper is looking like. You wanna make sure that there's no thread getting caught up or anything in your zipper. Zip it up and down a couple of times to make sure it is in place, all right? So mine is very nicely secured, looks good. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and grab pattern piece number 23, the back, and I'm gonna start working on my inseams. Now you guys know how to do this. You're just gonna kind of watch me pin it together, sew it together, and then I'll come back and put words up on the screen. All right, so let me go ahead and sew my inseams, and then I'm gonna start working on my pockets. Let's go ahead and do it now. All right, so now that I have it pinned, using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end, finish off your seam allowance for your inseam. Do both of your pant sleeves the same way. Let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I went ahead and sewn up the inseam, let me show you what that's looking like. Put them together so you could pretty much see this, right? So that's one side, here's the other side, just like that, okay? So now what we're gonna do is go ahead and sew up this crotch seams just like this. It's gonna look like that, which is pretty much the crotch seam is what I'm gonna be sewing up now. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and sew up the crotch seam. I'm gonna turn it over. And what I'm gonna do first is match up my seam allowance, the same direction. Make sure your seam allowance is going the same direction. I'm gonna pin there. And then I'm going to pin all the way to this dot. That's all the way up here on the front, all right? So just go ahead and pin your crotch seam in place now. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so I have this side pin. There is a double notch. Make sure you pin at that double notch and then continuously pin all the way up the back of your pants now. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have my crotch seams pinned, using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and a regular length stitch, back stitch at the beginning, so all the way to that dot, and then back stitch at the dot. After you do that, finish off your seam allowance, and I'm gonna make a second stitch. So the first one's gonna be at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then the second stitch is gonna be at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. The reason why I'm doing that is because it is a crotch seam and I do not want my stitchings to pop, all right? So therefore, I'm going to use 2 stitches for my crotch seam. Do whatever suits your fancy, all right? So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the inseam done, the next thing we're gonna do is go ahead and do the pockets. But first, I'm gonna show you what it looks like. This is the inseam. I have not serged it yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and serge it. But this is what it's looking like so far. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and serge my inseams, and then I'm gonna go ahead and do the pockets and the side seam. So I'll just have you guys watch me while I do that. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, now that I have one pocket on, using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end, go ahead, sew your seam together, and then what you're gonna do is go ahead and finish off your seam allowance. Now, only on the front pockets, on the pockets on the front part of your pants, you will understitch, okay? Do not understitch on your back pockets, all right? So go ahead and do all 4 pockets now. Let's go ahead and do it now. All right, so I have one of the pockets done. Doing the other pockets, this is the front pockets, just to give you kind of like context. On the front pockets, I'm going to go ahead and pin this one up like I did on the other side. After you pin this up, what you're going to do is go to the sewing machine, and using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, you're gonna back stitch at the beginning and at the end, finish off your seam allowance, press your seam towards the pocket, and then understitch on the pockets. Now you're only gonna understitch on the front pockets only. Do not understitch on your back pockets, all right? So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the pockets on, I have them finished off the seam allowance of the pockets. Now this is the back on the table. I'm gonna go ahead and with right sides together, I'm gonna go ahead and put the front on top of the back, just like so. And I'm going to turn it and sew up the side seams and pockets, all right? So let's go ahead and sew up the side seams and pockets now. So let's go ahead and do it now. All right, now that I have the side seam pin, using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and a regular length stitch, I'm gonna start at the hem, back stitch at the hem, so all the way up to the first dot, which is right here. You're gonna sew up to this first dot. Once you get there, you're gonna back stitch, break your threads, go to the second dot, back stitch at the second dot, and then sew all the way up and back stitch at the end. After you do that, go ahead and sew around your pocket, all right? After you do that, go ahead and finish off your pockets. You're gonna clip about a 1/2 inch down from the pocket and then serge the bottom together, all right? So that's what I'm gonna do. Let's go ahead and do both sides now. All right, so now that I have the pockets completely done, I have the side seams completely done. This is the front of my pants facing up. Now, what you're gonna do is take the pockets and you're going to baste them to the front portion of your pants. So I'm just going to basically baste them at the top. So I'm just gonna put a pin right there. Make sure you have the front, you have your pockets going towards the front instead of the back of your pants, okay? So that's one side. And you know it's the front because the front has pleats, so just make sure you definitely pin them to the front instead of the back. You'll be surprised who accidentally pinned their pockets to the back. I mean, it has been done. I have not done that. However, I'm just saying, like, it could be a slight mistake where someone have done that, all right? All right, so now that I have it pinned, I'm going to baste it, but I'm just gonna hold off and get to the next step and then baste it while I'm at the sewing machine. But one thing I wanna mention is after you baste, definitely try your pants on, all right? So I'm gonna try mine on after I baste my pockets in place and before I put on the waistband. Actually, I think I'm gonna put on the waistband. Well, no, I'm going to try them on first before putting on the waistband, and then I try them on again. All right. So you go ahead and baste across, and then let's go ahead and work on our carriers. Now I'm going to put my pants to the side and baste it in just a moment, but go ahead and grab pattern piece number 25, the carriers. All right. So now this is optional. If you do not want carriers, you can skip this part, but what you're going to do is with wrong sides together. Okay. You're going to basically press this in half just like that, open it out, press to both lines like this, and then press it one more time and stitch, okay? And then stitch it closed. Let's go ahead and do that now. And then what we're gonna do is after you do that, I'm gonna show you what you're gonna do. After you do that, you're gonna cut 4-inch strips, and you should cut, I believe, 5. Let me check the instructions. So yes, you should cut 5 pieces, which are 4 inches long. So let's go ahead and do that first by just creating the carriers now. Let's do that now. All right, so what I did for the carriers, I pressed it wrong sides together. I pressed it in half. Then I pressed to the center each side, and then folded it one more time, and it created the carrier like this. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut 5 strips 4 inches long. All right. So what I'm going to do is just cut them at 4 inches long. So just go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have all 5 carrier pieces, what I'm gonna do is go ahead and attach those to my pants. So just kind of like to show you, I'm gonna go ahead and turn my pants right side out, but first I'm gonna go ahead and baste it and then turn it right side out. All right, so let me go ahead and do that now. All right, so now I have the pants turned right side out. Now what we're gonna do is take our carriers, this is optional, and you're gonna put it on the lines where you made the pleats, in the center back, and then where you have your darts, those lines as well, all right? So all you're going to do is just take one and place it right there, all right? So I'm gonna go ahead and do mine now. All right, so now that I have them pinned using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, I'm just going to baste them in place, all right? So baste all 5 of them in place now, and then we'll start working on our waistband. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the carriers on, let's move this out of the way and go ahead and start working on our waistband. Now, one thing I will say is, work on the waistband and the waistband facing at the same time. And I'm telling you that because I'm only gonna say it one time instead of twice, all right? So move your pants off to the side, grab your waistband, which are the interface pieces, okay? So you have pattern piece 26, which is your right front, 27, your left front, and 28, your back waistband, all right? And what you're gonna do is open out pattern piece number 28 and then take pattern piece number 27. It's supposed to go like this, where 27 is over here and 26 is over here. So right front, left front. And then you're going to pin. So go ahead and pin now. All right, so now that I have the waistband on, the next thing we're gonna do is go ahead and start working on our facing. So let's go ahead and move our pants off to the side, grab your facing, and you wanna put pattern piece number 28, which is your back waistband, down. And if you see that you have pattern piece number 27, which is the left waistband, you need to match up the notches on this side. And then you have pattern piece number 26, which is your right front waistband, needs to be on this side. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and pin. So you should have it the same way that you just pinned them on for your main waistband, because you're going to pin them on the same way. All right. So go ahead and pin that. And I'm going to pin it to both sides, just like so. And then using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and a regular length stitch, back stitch at the beginning and at the end, and go ahead and sew your seams together and then press your seam allowance open. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have my waistband facing done, this is what it's looking like. I am actually going to play around with some bias tape that I made because I have a lot of scrap fabric, and the whole thing that I'm doing this summer is to go ahead and use some of my scrap fabric. So this is from a dress that I made for myself as well as my daughter. So all I'm going to do is put it along the bottom of my waistband. All right. So I'm going to do that before attaching the waistband to the waistband facing to the waistband. So let me go ahead and do that now. All right. So now that I have the waistband facing, I went ahead and added some bias tape that I made at the very bottom. I have lots of scraps, so that's what I did. Go ahead and grab your pants. And this is the back facing me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to where I'm looking at the back. Now mine will say back. And all I'm going to do is basically match it up and pin all the way around. All right. So go ahead and pin your waistband facing onto your waistband now. All right, so now that I have the waistband facing on the waistband, I'm going to start in the back at the center back using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and a regular length stitch. Back stitch at the beginning, sew to one side, and then back stitch at the end. Then I'm going to turn it over, still starting in the center back stitch there, and sew all the way to the front and back stitch the front. All right. Now, one thing I want to mention is you are going to go ahead and close this off as well, and the front as well. So you're going to close both of those off. All right. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have my waistband facing on, I went all the way around at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then at the front where you have the side which is your left front on waistband, I went down 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then I did the exact same thing to my right front waistband, went down 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now what I'm gonna do is take my scissors and trim it down. Now, before I trim it down, I want to say one thing about if you added some bias tape like I did. So in the instructions, it wanted you to press up a 1/2 inch seam allowance and then trim it down to a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I forgot to tell you to do that. So if you did not do that and you put on your, I'll put it up on the screen when I'm editing the video. But if you just did what I did, and actually, if you just put bias tape and did not trim it down, I do apologize. But you need to fold it up a 1/2 inch, trim it down, and then put the bias tape on there. But I'm going to put it in where you should have done that, okay? But if you just put the bias tape on like I did, you don't necessarily have to do what the instruction said, but I wanted to make sure you are aware of that, okay? I did it, and I forgot to tell you that I did that. All right, so back to what I was saying. Go ahead and trim down the waistband facing on waistband, trim down that seam allowance a little bit so we could go ahead and understitch. Go ahead and trim it down now. All right, so now that I have the seam allowance trimmed down, I'm going to go ahead and turn my facing right side out, just like you see me doing here. I'm gonna get rid of any loose threads that I have and get ready to understitch on my waistband facing. So the waistband facing is this portion that you just put on. You want to make sure that your seam allowance is up towards your waistband facing, and you're going to stitch about 1/4 of an inch as far as you can, okay? So I'm going to make sure my seam allowance is there. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my point turner and poke out that corner right there on both sides as well. All right, so now I'm going to go to my sewing machine and making sure that my seam allowance is pressed towards my waistband facing. I'm going to go ahead and stitch on my waistband facing about 1/4 of an inch all the way across. Let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so we are in the home stretch of these pants, almost done there. All right, so what I did was I went ahead and pressed down my waistband all the way around. Now, I do not have my label in. I think I'm gonna go ahead and put my label in before I completely close it off. But what I wanna tell you is press it down, and this is what it should be looking like. And then what you're going to do is you're gonna stitch in the ditch. Now you can hand sew this if you want. You could do it with the machine if you want. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stitch in the ditch all the way around, catching this back part of the facing all the way around. After I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and make my buttonhole on this side. This is my buttonhole. Let me make that a little bit darker so you can see. I'm gonna make my buttonhole right here. I'm going to go ahead and put a hook and eye. Now, if you make a buttonhole, it should just stick. But it wants you to not only make the buttonhole, but you need to make your hook, and you need to put a hook right here and 2 eyes on this side, all right? You could do that. You could read the instructions on how to do hook and eye closures there as well. And then the only thing that's left for you to do after that is the hem. Now, I think the hem is 1.25 inches, I think. Go back to your pattern pieces, and I think it's 1.25 inches, but I'm gonna say try them on and see what you need to take up. Now, I am 5'6", so most of the patterns are drafted for a female that's 5'5", 5'6". But what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna try it on, and I plan on wearing these with heels. So I think what I'm gonna do is only do 5/8 or maybe 1 inch instead of 1 1/4, because I don't want high waters, okay? I don't want that. So with that being said, that is it for this sew along. I hope you enjoyed. And just for a quick reference of what we went ahead and sewed up, y'all know it is Butterick 7012 is the pattern that I went ahead and shared with you guys the sew along. Before you even asked about the jacket, I can't stand that jacket, so I'm not gonna even show that to you guys on what it looks like. I just need to finish the lining portion of the sleeves, and then it's all done. But just note that you may never see any photos of the jacket. Simply, you might and might not, so don't get caught up on that, simply because I don't like how the jacket turned out. It's just too short for me. I wouldn't be able to wear this to work. So that's that. I'm just gonna leave it at the pants. For right now, I might go back and do the lining on the sleeves. But yeah, for right now, it's just gonna be the pants. Well, that's it for this sew along. I hope you enjoyed. Come back for the full pattern review of these pants and how I styled these pants with some new items in my wardrobe that I just completed. Talk to you soon. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.